Alright guys, I'm heading over to go and pick up a Pioneer PLX-1000 vinyl turntable, record player, whatever you want to call it. I'm basically going to evaluate it and see whether I should add them into the inventory that we have over here. At the moment, if a DJ rider calls for a record player, it's going to be a Technics SL1200, which has been the industry standard for pretty much 30 plus years. They're built like a tank, and there's really been no competition. But Panasonic, who make the Technics brand, stopped production of the Technics. For this video, we're going to have a look, see what Pioneer has done. They've definitely heavily borrowed from the design of the Technics, which, you know, is a smart move, because Technics have pretty much designed a device that has not changed or been updated in any significant way for 30 years until basically it finished production. They did do a couple of updates, and you know, they were pretty major, like they replaced the neon lamps for LEDs. Wow, the engineering department was working full-time for that update. And then, you know, they released the gold special editions and small things like removing the indent from the pitch fader and replacing it with a button. But apart from that, the design remained wholly unchanged. So it's going to be interesting to see what Pioneer have done. I've seen a few videos and stuff, but I haven't actually seen one hands-on yet. So yeah, I'm going to do a side-by-side comparison with the features of the Pioneer compared to the Technics. And then I'm also going to do some sound quality comparisons with things that are important with a professional record player, such as vibration, feedback. I might set up some measurements and compare, you know, noise rejection and things like that. Hi guys, welcome to the teardown review of the Pioneer PLX-1000 turntable. Now this is a fairly new product on the market. I guess Pioneer's brought this out to fill the gap that was made when Panasonic stopped making the Technics SL1200 series turntables. So what I'm going to do, besides opening it up, having a look, see how they've made the thing, we're going to compare it side by side with the Technics 1200, and we're going to do a little bit of sound test. Let's open this thing up. Now Pioneer, they don't really care so much about their packaging, you know, not like products like Apple and stuff like that. Generally it's like a pretty normal box, and yeah, it's well packed. Yeah, I can see somebody's had this open, because that for sure should have been in some kind of a plastic cover. But you can see there we've got the dust cover, which interestingly is devoid of any sort of latch mechanism. On the Technics you have the magnetic on the newer ones, I think from the M5s up, and then the older ones had the physical latches. So yeah, that's interesting. Although I guess in the clubs you're not really using the dust covers very often anyway. Okay, one cool addition straight off the bat is they are actually giving you a slip mat. So, wow, good little Pioneer slip mat. The Technics never came with them, as far as I could know. And then, of course, you've got the rubber mat. Now, one interesting thing to note is that when they publish the specifications, like signal to noise and things like that, the testing for those specs is done with the rubber on the platter, because obviously without the rubber on the platter you get some resonance, and it helps reject feedback, the rubber does. So yeah, the published specs are with the rubber on the platter, which nobody except hi-fi guys use the rubber, so that's just something interesting. Okay, we've got our manual. Yeah, don't need that. And then we have a turntable. I've got to say, ooh, there's a bit of weight to that, I can tell you. We have The 45 adapter, which is for some of the old records that won't fit directly on the spindle. And then we have the counterweight for the tone arm. Now, another interesting thing, a good tip, is when you're traveling your decks, always remove the tone arm. Like, put it in your record bag, put it in your pocket, whatever. But if you travel the deck with the tone arm weight on, it's putting a lot of pressure on the gimbal. So every little vibration, you know, when your car drives over a speed hump or something like that, it's magnifying the forces on that gimbal when you have the weight on. So yeah, hot little tip, if you want your bearings and stuff in your gimbal to stay good, then always travel it with this off. And then we have a Pioneer head shell with a little 4 gram extra weight on there, but no stylus attached. So if you're buying these, you need to factor in some stylus. Here I've got the Autophone Pro. So yeah, the thing is heavy on first look, and it feels physically different to a Technics SL1200, but that might just be because I'm so used to the Technics SL1200 with the rubber on the bottom. This is like more of a, I'm not sure what, it's some sort of maybe metal or maybe some kind of heavy plastic. And then if we pull the platter off, no surprises there, direct drive, some nice heavy rubber underneath, voltage select switch, so these are universal, unlike some of the Technics models. What I do like is that there's not really a lot of holes going down into the top circuit board. I repaired a lot of Technics in the past from just gunk and drink spills and cigarette ash going down inside. So that's kind of cool that they've taken a look at that. Now here, this is heavily borrowed from the Technics design. So you can see here, pretty much the layout of the turntable is, let's say, based upon the Technics. I mean, even down to where they have their logo and where they have their model number and stuff. Obviously the start-stop button is in the same position. The power on-off switch is pretty much exactly the same design, you know, with some minor cosmetic changes. Your 33 and 45 switches are in the same place. Your light looks like you could, even if you broke this one, you could put a Technics one in its place and it would fit straight in. The pitch fader design is similar to the later versions of the Technics, where there's no center click for the pitch, and there is actually a pitch reset button, which is much better for mixing. One cool addition is we have tempo range, so ±8, ±16, and ±50. Now, to be honest with you, I'm not really sure what you would ever do with ±50 or even ±16, except maybe for acapellas or something like that. But otherwise it's kind of just a throwaway effect. Personally, I wouldn't have minded if they'd put a ±6 or a ±4, just for that really fine beat mixing, to give you that little bit of extra control. Now they've gone with the S-shaped tone arm, which is, you know, a proven thing when it comes to DJing. You know, they say that the straight tone arm has better sound quality, but the S-shaped tone arm does have better tracking, just generally due to the way that the angle of the stylus is when it's in the middle of the record. Now, the clipping mechanism is the same as Technics. The lifter mechanism is the same as Technics. The anti-skate mechanism is the same as Technics. The height adjustment is the same as Technics, and even the little lock for the height adjustment is the same as Technics. So yeah, I mean, it doesn't take a genius to work out where they took their cues from when they were designing this. Another interesting feature, and I would have to say a nice improvement, is underneath there, where you can see that, let me just get it in shot there, where you can see that it actually has an Iec Power Connector for the input. It has a Kensington lock, it has a ground cable connection, and it has actual phono output jacks on RCA. So that's kind of cool in that it's not a fixed cable like it was on the Technics. It's easier to pack up and carry around, and it's easy to replace the cable if you get some damage there. So yeah, thumbs up to that. Okay guys, so here we have the side-by-side. You can really see that there is not a great deal of difference. The layout is the same. You know, it's actually unbelievable how similar the whole tone arm assembly looks. It looks, I would have to say, pretty much identical. Almost to the point where parts look like they would be interchangeable. Pioneer have done their trademark circle start-stop button, which is, you know, in line with their CDJ range, so there's no real surprise there. Yeah, the pop-up light's black instead of silver. The buttons are black instead of silver, but I'm pretty sure we're going to find that they're backlit. There's not a lot in this. The differences, I did mention earlier regarding the breathing holes under the platter. You can see there that there's a lot more open space on the Technics, where we've just got these tiny 4mm holes. There's like 6 there and 10 there, compared to all these huge big open gaps we have on the Technics, and not the least of which is this large cutout on the chassis, which can be real painful in a club situation, you know, when the decks don't belong to the people who are using them and they may not have as much respect for them as they should. Okay, so the feet just screw out. Another actual good little tip is if you're trying to squeeze every little bit of gain before feedback out of the decks, don't screw them all the way in. If you make it so that this little rubber grommet touches, then there's more transference of vibration. So if you just screw them out a little bit, you can actually get just that little bit more isolation from the surface that the turntable is sitting on. Okay, so yeah, it looks very different. I'm pretty sure that this base is some kind of composite plastic material. Anyway, once we get it off, I should be able to know better. Okay, so one thing that I will say straight away is that all the weight of this thing is definitely not in the bottom part. Unlike with the Technics, but when I lifted that off, it felt unusually light. So let's just take a look at the bottom cover here. And it's very different to the Technics. The Technics was just like a large rubber piece that came off with quite a bit of weight to it. This thing, it doesn't really weigh so much. I can verify it is made out of ABS plastic. And then there's this strange like rubber part that looks like it was a bit of an afterthought. Almost as if when they were doing the testing of the product, they found a resonance at some frequency, and then they worked out that they needed to throw that extra bit of rubber in there to stop that. So yeah, that's interesting. Okay, so on first look here, the first thing I notice is that Pioneer have used single-sided PCBs throughout the whole thing. I mean, yeah, they're definitely trying to keep the cost down. Obviously, for Technics and Panasonic, it wasn't financially viable to make these things anymore, so I guess Pioneer had to make these at a price. So the first thing is, you know, the PCBs, they're really quite reminiscent of the era of the CDJ-1000 Mark I or the DJM-500, DJM-600, as far as the PCB design and the quality and, you know, that kind of thing. But just going in, a turntable is always going to be quite simple. You can see here that it is. You've got your power input going into your primary side PCB, which is completely separate from the rest of it, and this wire will be going down to the power switch. But if you look here, this is a bit stingy. They've just got some stuck on cable tie clips there. I think if you're in a hot environment like I'm here in Dubai, that is gonna come off pretty quickly. And you know, I think they could have added some little bits to the molding so that that could have been more tidy done. Like even look there, that's close to like pinching when you put it on. It's not gonna pinch, but it's close. Going on to this board here, which basically has all your transistors with the little heat sinks on that are driving the motor. So this is actually the drive section for the motor. And then next we've got the ribbon connector, which is not even a flat flex, it's like old school wires, going into the main PCB. And the main PCB here is going to be doing your timing control, so basically the speed of the platter. There's normally some kind of sensing feedback going in, but let's take this board off and have a look. Okay, so if we flip this up, yeah, again, single-sided board. Now, one really crappy thing that I can see here, and I have to point out, is that the pitch fader, which is here, is mounted on the main PCB directly. I can see this being a problem in the future because the pitch fader is the most often replaced and worn out part of the whole record player. And because it's mounted on the main PCB, you have to desolder this part and this part here to replace it. Now, if you've got inexperienced guys, hack repairmen, and you replace that 1, 2, 3 times in its lifetime, you can do damage to the tracks here and damage to the PCB quite easily, especially, you know, if you're soldering iron too hot, if you just don't know what you're doing. If you destroy that, you have to replace the entire main PCB. So I say that's actually a fail. You know, I can see in the future there's going to be a lot of these decks with, you know, bodge wires across because of busted up tracks, and I don't know, I think that this is going to be a problem for the longevity of these units. And just from what I see in general, do I think that in 20 years this record player is still going to be working? I doubt it. I really doubt it. But time will tell. So also underneath here you can see that Pioneer has learned from their design of the CDJs and the DJM series, and they've pretty much used the same kind of mechanism for the switches as what's inside a CDJ. Now everyone knows that the early CDJs had problems with the switches, and they have fixed that in the more recent models, and this is definitely borrowing from the things that they've learned. So yeah, that gets a thumbs up. And you can see here the micro switches are exactly the same, and I would bet that they're the same part number as the micro switches out of the CDJ 2000. So yeah, that's a good thing. Let's have a look in the back of the motor here. Oh wow. Okay, yeah, this is cool. This is the sense feedback for the main PCB so that it actually knows how fast the platter is spinning. And this is a bit of an upgrade from a Technics, because on the Technics this was done magnetically. Here they're doing it optically. So you can see here is an opto sensor, which is basically passing a beam of light through these tiny holes in this metal disc, and it's counting every slot that goes through there. So the resolution of that is quite high, and I would say a fair bit higher than what the Technics was. So in theory it should be able to have less wow and flutter than the Technics, but the reliability of this, I'm not sure, because, you know, if this gets dirty or liquid inside or something, this is going to cease to work. Whereas with the magnetic mechanism that's in the Technics, that thing was bulletproof. So yeah, again, time is only going to tell, but from me, you know, this opto mechanism could be a weak point of this deck, and definitely this pitch fader arrangement is for sure a weak point of the design of this deck. And also I guarantee that these little things are going to lift up here on the power switch cable. It's interesting to see. Obviously they're billed at a price. Time's going to tell. Now you'll notice that I haven't mentioned audio, and that's because pretty much there is no audio circuitry inside one of these things. And I think, again, this is a little bit of a mistake by Pioneer. If I show you, this is the rear output board. You see you've got phono out and the signal ground, and you'll notice that the signal ground is actually just the chassis ground, because this is connected to the metal chassis, and then the metal chassis over here is connected to the earth pin. You'll notice this fairly shabby looking shielded wire comes directly from the head shell and just goes onto this PCB and out these connectors. So there's no circuitry there at all. And I think that Pioneer should have upped the ante a little bit and put a preamp inside, because there's might be no phono preamps, or there might be only one or two. So it would be nice if there was a preamp inside here that put out line level. And for that matter, it would be even nicer if there was a digital output, so that you could hook it up to the Pioneer mixer through the digital interface, and that would be really cool. So anyway, there's plenty of room in there. I don't know why Pioneer didn't just put a preamp in there. I guess, again, cost. So yeah, basically now you've seen everything that's inside. I'm gonna quickly put him back together, and then we'll give it a bit of a test. Okay guys, so I've set up a bit of a test rig. I'll explain to you what the setup is. We've got the Pioneer record player going into channel 2 of the Zone DB4 Allen and Heath mixer, and I have the Technics record player going into channel 3. And then I've got an audio output going into this Turbo Sound Milan M15, which is just a powered speaker that I had lying around. Now what I aim to do is just check the feedback rejection of these decks, because that's a really important thing. Like when you're in a club DJ booth and you've got two speakers either side pumping at high SPL, obviously you need the deck to be able to still play and reject feedback and not resonate. Now, to have it not resonate at all, it's not possible, but Technics is a good benchmark. Even though they did tend to feedback and have problems and stuff, still, let's hope that the Pioneer is at least as good as the Technics. So, what we do first, I've just put down two tractor vinyls. They're the same vinyl, same thickness. Okay, so let's just measure the Technics first. I say measure loosely, and just see how far we have to push this rig to make it feedback. Already right now, there's a lot of gain. Like if I dropped a record, it would probably blow the cone out of the speaker. So the trim here is set to maximum, the channels at maximum, and you can see there's a little bit of low end rumble, but it's not really feeding back. It's kind of okay. There's a little bit of mid-range resonance coming in there that you can hear it resonating off my voice, and definitely at that level the bass is almost there. So I'd say that's our maximum. So let's switch over to the Pioneer, and now we're at 0 trim. So I'm just going to bring the trim up like I did on the Technics. Whoa. Let me just check the EQ is all flat, no filters. Wait a minute. doesn't seem right. No, that is right. Wow, there's some serious feedback at like, I don't know, around 250 Hertz, something like that. That is like crazy compared. If I put that to the level of the Technics, that would just feedback uncontrollably. Okay, I'm gonna match the Technics settings on the trim and flick across. So now we're nothing. Back to the Pioneer. Whoa. I'm just thinking like maybe I've done something wrong here, because that's like out of control, crazy. Let me just swap the channels just to rule out that there's not something going on in the mixer or something like that. So now the Pioneer is on this channel. And no, there is definitely some major feedback going on. Yeah, listen to that. Yeah, I really don't want to blow my speaker up. Okay, let me just, I'm just putting the rubber pad down so I can kind of see whether it's the platter is vibrating or whether the actual base of the unit is vibrating. No, it's not the platter. So I would say that that is the difference between the ABS plastic base on the Pioneer and the heavy duty rubber base on the Technics. And to be honest, I'm a little bit like blown away by this. I didn't expect that at all, and I would say that that is a huge fail. I can't believe that Pioneer have released a turntable that feeds back like that, that's supposed to be a pro DJ model aimed at the club market. And for me, I would say that's a deal breaker. That's the difference between good sound and unusable sound. So yeah, that's really interesting. I would say my conclusion at the end of all this, of, you know, the teardown and that test just then, should you sell your Technics SL1200s and buy a Pioneer PLX-1000? I would definitely hold on to this. This might be okay if you're just using it for timecode vinyl, where it doesn't have a chance to feed back. But even then, you know, like, the resonances can get in the way of the timecode, and yeah, just in general, I'll say that I'm pretty disappointed about the PLX-1000. I wanted to love it. You know, for me, Pioneer getting behind vinyl and, you know, trying to bring such an iconic thing back to the industry that's available and brand new is a great thing, but would I recommend this turntable? Probably not. I'd say Pioneer needs to put some more work into it and wait for the Mark II. I hope this video wasn't too long-winded, but there's no real way for me to go into the depth that I wanted to go into without taking a bit of time, and even actually I cut a lot of stuff out. So I guess it's becoming apparent that if you have a very short attention span, probably my videos are not really for you, because I'd rather have a proper look at something rather than just glossing over it and seeing what it looks like. You know, if I had have just gone off what the Pioneer looks like, I would have said, yeah, it's as good as the Technics, it's the same. but you know, as you can see, once you get inside, it's far from the same. So if you guys did enjoy it, don't forget to give the video a thumbs up, share it with your friends, leave some comments down below. I'll read all the comments, obviously. This is only my second video, so go easy. Hopefully they're gonna get better as I go along. I'm learning this process as well. I really enjoy making this video, and I'm gonna try and keep them coming, like one video a week. I'm really busy with my work at the moment, so it's difficult to find the time. But it's something I'm enjoying, so I'm gonna make the time for it. Alright guys, thanks a lot for watching. Ciao.